Well, hi and welcome. My name's Steve Layson. I'm part of the ministry team here at Gerringong Anglican Church, and I'd like to welcome you to our mental health seminar this evening. I've been part of the Gerringong community for the last 2 years, and it's been quite a 2 years. One of the biggest issues that's been apparent in our community is that of mental illness, depression, anxiety, self-harm, those kinds of things. There have been some good things that have been happening, so the rise of the David Kerr group, the Yellow Up campaign, which has just recently ended, and also the men's walks and other things that have been happening are really great. But all in all, there's been lots of difficulty, hasn't there? There's been the stress of isolations and lockdowns, the trying to cope with remote learning and working, the ever-changing rules and regulations it's hard to keep up with. Many of us have struggled personally, but it's also been difficult, hasn't it, to watch other people struggle, people that we know and love, to watch them doing it tough. I wonder if you ever wonder how you can help. Well, as a church community, we've been dealing with our own difficulties, just like everyone else, but we're also keen to make a positive contribution to this whole area, which is why we're running this seminar this evening. In a moment, I'm going to introduce you David Kerr. Some of you already know David. He's a resident of Geroa, who's an individual relationship and family therapist, not to mention a celebrated author, I understand. He's come along this evening and agreed to speak to us on the topic, caring for others in a pandemic. And so thank you, David, for coming, and I'll get you to come up in a moment. As the evening goes on, you may have questions. And so there are two ways that you can ask a question. If you're watching on YouTube, there should be a chat section. There may well be a chat section where you can type in your questions as you're watching the video. If you're unable to do that for some reason, and we know that technology doesn't always do what we want it to do, then you can send a text to the number on the bottom of the screen. It's my phone number. You won't end up on some kind of mailing list if you do that. I'll just pass the question on to David. And if you're not watching this live, if you're watching this recorded, obviously you won't be able to take part in the chats, but you can still send some questions through, which I'll then pass on to David at a later date. I'd like to start off our evening by praying and asking that God would help us and teach us many things. So let me pray for us. Dear Heavenly Father, we do pray that this evening will be very helpful to everyone who's watching. We pray that we might be able to put the things we learn into practice in such a way that gives strength and hope to those that we know who are struggling with mental illness or other difficulties. We thank you for David, for his expertise and experience. We pray that you'll bless him and bless us through what he has to say. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, I'm going to hand over to David.
Well, thank you, Stephen. It's a real pleasure to be here and to share in the evening. I do have some thoughts that I've picked up along the way with my work, and I do know that out there are probably many more people more qualified, but hopefully some of what I've learnt on my journey will be useful for you tonight in caring for a family member or a friend, a workmate, someone in the community who is struggling. So looking after your mental health and caring for your own mental health and your friend's mental health is certainly critical. Our mental health certainly, I think, is one of the most valuable assets that we possess. And as Stephen said, there's been a lot of good care demonstrated within the community. I think the Gerringong and Geroa community is very strong in terms of reaching out to supporting those who struggle financially in material ways, but also with emotional needs. And I see that demonstrated with people walking together through individual friendships and also through the groups and for the clubs, and also with the faith community of this church and other churches. And also the Geza Care, the yellow ribbons that are tied to so many homes and business premises in the area. Good friendships really are a very necessary foundation for good mental health. In fact, I describe it as good glue that not only holds the community together cohesively, but it strengthens the individual within those that are connected and supported and valued. And so they hopefully, instead of feeling like little islands, they connect to the mainland. So what do you do when a family member or a workmate or a friend appears to be struggling? That's the question that I want to focus on tonight. And so firstly, what I'd like to provide you with a means to be able to discern what their need is and how you might be able to respond appropriately. I want to demonstrate how we might respond through role plays, and also to do a risk analysis, to demonstrate a risk analysis for those who are vulnerable to self-harm. Resources are important, and also self-care. And then hopefully, as Stephen said, there might be some questions that you have that he'll collate, and then we'll finish round about 8:30. So let's make a start. So as I said, friendship is a good foundation and in supporting someone who's going through tough times. Practical support like meals and lawns, mowing lawns and cleaning and offering child minding, financial assistance, it's all very valuable, practical support. But is there something more that you can do? What can you say that might be helpful? So if you ask how you're going and the answer is, oh, pretty fine, thanks, or oh, yeah, I'll be right, mate, and you know that it's not okay, what do you say? So firstly, it's important to assess or to discern their level of need. And the first category, and it's usually a fairly small category, is that they might have a problem. And a problem has a solution. And our task is to ask the specific questions to help us understand what their real need is. And a friend might say, well, you know, I haven't been out with my partner for yonks. And yeah, we really need to do that. And you might say, well, what would you like to do? Well, I don't know of any babysitters. And so you might respond and say, well, if you could find a babysitter, would that help? It sure would. And so you, if you know babysitters or if you need to do some research, you can provide the information and the advice. Problem solved. Simple. And that's the kind of problem that often gets presented to tables of wisdom around issues in the home, DIYs. I've got one at Berry, and it's very useful. If I've got a problem, yes, I get advice from those who have got more expertise. And so it's the same with doctors, with people professionally. We go with a problem, they give us advice, and hopefully problem is solved. So a predicament is a little different. So if your friend is feeling trapped or anxious, depressed, they most likely won't feel very listened to or valued or supported or understood if you just give them advice, even though maybe deep down you think that that could tick the box. So, and it often comes out of if there being no real easy answer, there could be a number of pathways that you could go down to respond and need to be explored. And so that's an area that I want to develop in a few moments. A third area is someone who's in a crisis. So here your friend may not want help, or they may want help. And the issue could be a very large predicament. They've received distressing news from their doctor, from a medical test. It could be retrenchment from work, something pretty heavy, pretty serious. And they're screaming out inside, you know, how am I going to manage? And some people display very clear signs of their crisis through their body language, through wringing of hands and gesticulating and pacing. But others can hide it. They go internally, go quiet and withdraw, and internalise their feelings. And so you really need quite a high degree of perceptiveness to really understand and tune in to what's going on for the person. And then there's panic. And here, the person isn't listening, their body is flooded with adrenaline, their mind has gone into the worst case scenario, their heart's racing, they can't think straight. Yes, they're all over the shop. So how do you respond to someone in a state of panic? Well, here you really need to take charge of the situation. And first of all, you need to remain calm yourself. You need to remind yourself to breathe, to slow down and to maintain any anxiety that could be there. Call for eye contact. So look at me, look at me. You might have heard that before somewhere. But maintaining eye contact and calling for it helps to bring them into the present, to reassure them that, look, I'm with you. I'm not going to leave you. I won't leave you. Sometimes touching the arm or shoulder is useful just to help them to be present, to bring them into the present if they've gone off into another place. And then instruct them to slow your breathing. Slow down. Just take deep breaths. Just let it out slowly. That's right. Yeah, just take another one. Just let it out slowly. And so you are training them, coaching them to just settle and provide that practical instruction. And then to provide hope, to say something like, I'm with you, we're going to work on this together. I'm not going to leave you here alone. And if needs be, we'll go and get extra help. So panic certainly is a very significant one to address, particularly around car accidents and when someone has received bad news. Shock, too, is another one. And here the person often has just come out of an accident or received terrible news, and everything is closed down. And it's wonderful how sometimes what the body does so that we can survive. And so the body closes down. We operate on remote control. And you may see a distant look in the eye. They freeze. And so the idea is to support them, to ask the person to sit down, to maybe even to put the hand on their shoulder or to have some kind of contact with them. Maybe they need some water. Possibly if they are really feeling faint, to lie them down and put them into the recovery position, and then of course to call for specialised help, maybe for an ambulance or for medical assistance. So they are the main ways of people often present with some kind of an issue, and it's very careful to be able to discern what their level of need is. So tonight, I certainly want to work with and to put the main focus on the predicament. And that's one of the hardest ones, I think, to work with. And this is really what the majority of people present when they are coming to someone else for help, or often of when you pick up within your family or workplace, you see someone struggling. It often can be just an ongoing, terrible predicament that is bringing them down. They are struggling with anxiety. They're feeling very depressed. And there's no easy answer. So here we need to look at getting beside the person. And there are some basic interpersonal skills that you can draw upon and develop to help work beside and to walk with someone who is struggling. And so the first one is genuineness and respect. And here you convey to your friend, family member, workmate, that they are really important to you, that you're really sincere, you're trustworthy, you're non-judgmental. You see them as an equal. You're not going to be patronising, talk down to them, but you are going to work with them as an equal. And then there is the skill of attending, which is the mark of a good carer, so that you convey to them that you are the most important person in the world, and I'm with you here. I'm going to give you my undivided attention. And so maintaining eye contact, checking whether they're comfortable where they're sitting or whether they prefer to walk. If you're in a cafe, for example, and they raise an issue there and want to talk about it, just to check whether they feel secure, whether there's a confidential space there, whether it's someone sitting too close and whether you need to move to another location. So it's really helping the person to feel comfortable and safe so that they can tune into you and you can fully tune into them. Attending is a very important skill. Often I hear presented in my marital counselling work of a member sitting there watching the television, reading the newspaper and listening to their partner, and their partner saying, "Look, you're not listening to me." And the answer is, "Yes, I am," but they're not attending. And so to give the undivided attention, the full eye contact, undivided attention certainly conveys respect and that I'm with you, I'm in tune with you. Another very important skill, of course, in walking with someone and caring for someone is to be able to listen not only with your ears, but with your eyes, to see what's happening in their body, with their breathing, and also the flow of their words, whether it's broken up speech, whether it's confused, the strength of the speech, is there anger in the tone? And the content, the words that are actually used, as well as how it's delivered, is important. It are all clues as to what is going on for the individual, for your friend or workmate. And then another skill, of course, is how do you respond? What do you say? And I know that sometimes I hear things and I get stuck for words too. So, and I've practiced quite a bit over the years. But really, knowing how to listen and how to respond in the moment really is a crucial way to be able to help someone who is struggling. And that's an area that I want to develop in a few moments. And another important skill is what's called concreteness. It's helping the person to be specific rather than general or abstract. Often vague speech reflects a mixed up mind. So they may say, "Well, how you going, mate?" And the response is, "Oh, I just feel blah." And what's blah? So you ask the question, what's blah like for you? They might say, "Well, life's just a mess." Okay, tell me about the mess. What's the mess? And they might say in conversation, talking about an issue with it, "Oh yeah, I just gave him a bit of a slap." And to make it more concrete and specific, the best question might be to ask, "Well, how hard did you slap him?" "Oh, okay. Well, actually, it left a bruise, and look, I'm feeling really guilty about that. I think I overstepped the mark." And so here's an entry point into the issue to go deeper. So concreteness and helping the person to be specific can be quite a gift that clarifying in the mind of the person what the real issues are and particularly how they feel about what is going on for them. And then the final one is self-disclosure. And I know this sometimes can be a rather controversial one amongst people who are in the caring business, because they say, look, you should not give away too much of yourself at all. And I agree. And here, it's a little of yourself out of an experience that helps to resonate, the person to resonate with you, with the particular issue or feeling that they've got, so that you let them know that they're not alone. They're human, just as you are human and the rest of us. So it could be, just for example, they say, look, I'm really worried about my eldest getting his licence, and driving my car. And look, when I say that, I feel so guilty, because I know I should be able to trust him. And your response might be, with a little bit of self-disclosure, look, when my son started driving too and went for his licence, I was really anxious too and very worried that he'd end up damaging himself. There's a young P-plater and he'd also damaged the car. So is that what it's like for you too? You notice the handbag. You've given a little of yourself that helps the other person to identify with what you've been struggled with, lets them know that you're human, but you've handed it back. And if you don't hand it back, often there can be the temptation that you go on with your story and they get left out. And their issue really doesn't get aired or worked on. So the next part of my presentation tonight is really how do you interact with your friend and how do you respond? And just a reminder too that you probably see on the screen there that the questions will be answered a little later on, and the details are there if you do want to get onto the chat room or text through to Stephen. So to help me, I just need to change position. So, John, John, you're the assistant minister here?
Yes, that's right.
Yes, and you're a very brave man.
Apparently.
Sitting down with me, because what I want to do now is to really demonstrate some of the different styles of caring. Look, some of them might be helpful in some circumstances, but look, I'll let you be the judge, and I'll let you folks also watching at the moment, you be the judge of what you think is the most helpful. And if you can put maybe a title or a label on each style. I've got 5 altogether here, and just see what you think, and we'll do a bit of a check-up later on. So, John, now look, I believe you've got a bit of a problem here.
Yeah, that's right. I did work for a catering company, and at the beginning of the lockdown, obviously there was no more events to cater for, so I lost my job and had to queue up outside Centrelink, first time in my life, and I haven't been able to work since then, and it's just really been weighing on me. I think I'm about to start back again, and then there's another lockdown and all that sort of thing, and I'm just feeling really down.
Yeah, well, listen, mate, if you tried to get work, I think I'd try and just get out there, get your CV together, and just do your best to try to get another job. You really need that. So I think that'd be my recommendation. And listen, if you're feeling a bit depressed, what about medication? Have you got any medication at home that you could use?
I've been drinking a fair bit.
Oh, drinking? Oh, no. Okay. Well, listen, if you've been to the doctor, I think the doctors sometimes can help to put some circuit breakers in to break that longing for for any substance abuse.
Well, I just feel really down, and I don't feel like I could go to a doctor or anything like that. I'm just feeling really blank and down, and yeah.
Yeah, look, I just think that you need time out, mate. You just need some time out. So if we just cut it there now, what was that like for you, John? What was that like to be?
It felt a bit like you were pointing out the obvious. You know, you need to get a job. Well, yes, that's the problem. But I do want a job. But
Okay.
you know, you're not helping me by just badgering me to get a job.
Right. Yes, it was the bleeding obvious, wasn't it?
Yes.
Probably some of that stuff. So I wonder what this one's called. It's the authoritarian. So it's the kind of helper, and of course I've just gone a bit overboard with that just to make the point, that me as the supposed carer takes charge, and I'm the expert, and direct the traffic, and by the sound of it, it didn't really meet your need at all. Yeah, and really it puts me in the expert position that I know exactly what it's like. I haven't even tried to find out what it's like for you. I've just gone straight into problem solving and advice giving. And
almost there was a bit of, I felt like there's a bit of judgment in there as well.
Oh, okay.
You know, in terms of you haven't got a job, you just got to get on with it, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, please forgive me. Let me move on to the next one.
I'll try.
So, how about this one? So, can you give me that scenario again?
Okay. Well, I worked for a catering company, and then when the pandemic hit, no more events to cater for. I lost my job, and I haven't been able to find any work since. And it's just really got to me. I'm really, really down. I don't want to go out. Don't want to see my friends. Been drinking too much.
Goodness me, that's so terrible. That is really terrible. And, gee, look, you really shouldn't feel that way. Yeah, you poor thing. I really feel for you, and I don't want you to worry. I really don't, and I think everything's going to be okay.
Well, it's been quite a while now, and I still don't have any work, and they're about to cut off all the financial support. So I'm really worried about what I'm going to do.
Look, yeah, I know that's horrible, but look, everything's going to work out okay. If we just cut it there. Well, what was that like? That's a bit of a different style.
I did feel like you cared, which is good, but it didn't help in any way. It was more just almost made me feel worse because I'm an object of pity in that sense. It's really bad that I'm in this situation, but that's it, nothing more.
Okay. And I'm telling you not to feel, don't feel. What was that like?
Well, yeah, I didn't feel listened to. I'm a bloke who's actually said I'm feeling really depressed, and that takes a lot for a bloke to say, and you're just saying, "Oh, don't feel like that." It's a bit dismissive or something.
Yes, yeah, yes, and that might well over time, if we continued, over a number of days of my poor attempts to try to help you, you'd end up being depressed because yes, you'd be up against a brick wall.
Made to feel worse.
Yeah. So this style is called the rescuer. And the rescuer is that I've got my own pain and I'm trying to rescue you from your pain too, rather than help you to empower you and to help you face it together. So that doesn't sound as though that's too helpful either. John, right. Well, look, let's try another one. See if we can do a bit better with this one. So, sorry to bring
That's
you back
all
to
right.
that scenario, but it's
I should
just
have come
useful.
up with a different one each time.
No, not at all. No.
So, at the beginning of the pandemic, I lost lost my job. I worked for a catering company, and with no more events happening, work just stopped, and I've been on government support ever since, which I find really hard. I've never been in that position before, and every time I think I might be able to get some work, there's another lockdown, and I keep going for jobs. I can't get anything, and it's just really getting to me. I feel so worthless. I'm really down, and all I want to do is stay home, and I've been drinking way too much, and don't want to go out. And now that lockdown's finishing, I still don't have any work, and I don't want to go out, and I'm just feeling really down.
So how many jobs have you gone for, you reckon?
Oh, probably about 20, I'd say.
Okay. Wow. And how, with your drinking, how many drinks do you drink a night, do you reckon?
Oh, I don't really count. I just, I know I'm drinking too much, but I'm not really counting.
Yeah. And what do you do? What do you do just to relax? Can you relax or?
Oh well, I'm just at home. There's, watching TV, just staring at the wall, staring out the window, that sort of thing. There's nothing to do. I do try for jobs when there are jobs going, but in a lockdown there aren't. And
yeah. So what kind of jobs you
well,
going
anything in catering, hospitality, all those sorts of things. But everyone's going for them because there's lots of people like me. So
yeah. So how long has this been going on for?
Well, ever since whenever it was beginning of last year, when it all the whole pandemic thing happened.
Yeah. Okay. If we just cut it there. So was this any better, John? What was that like to be interrogated?
It felt like you were interested at first because you were asking questions, but you didn't spend any time on the answers. You just asked another question, which was a bit odd, I thought. Yeah, it did. Yeah.
A bit like an interrogation. Yeah. Yeah, so this one lives up to its name. It's the curious carer. So we've had the authoritarian, the rescuer, and now the curious. And really, I'm kind of getting a bit of a buzz just finding out a bit more about you and a bit about some of the problems. Even if I get all this information together, I don't know what I'm going to do with it because I'm not sure that I can really solve your problem if I do get an answer to every question that I could think. And so, yeah, this is the curious one of the curious carer who they have a need to know and to ask questions, but it's not hitting the spot by the sound of it for you.
Yeah, it feels a bit like there's someone who's listening, who's interested. It's nice that someone else knows, but at the same time, it's not doing anything.
Yeah. Okay, so how about this one? This is we're on the second last one. So, yeah, give me that scenario again, if you would, John.
I'll see if I can remember it. So, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was working for a catering company, and with no more events to cater for, I lost my job, and I've had to go to Centrelink and been on government supports, and they're about to end soon. I'm really worried, and I've been trying for jobs. Every time we come out of lockdown, I've been trying to get some work, but I just can't get any work. And after all this time, I'm just in a really bad place. I'm really low. I've got no motivation, no energy. I just want to stay home. I don't want to talk to any of my friends. Now that we can go out, I don't want to. I've been drinking too much. I'm just in a really bad place.
John, that's terrible. That's terrible to hear. Look, you really need me. You can ring me any time at all, day or night. In fact, I'm just wondering maybe, tonight if I just drop round, and maybe tomorrow night too, because I'm not doing anything and I'm at a bit of a loose end. So, but look, I really need you. You need support. I can see that, and I want to be here for you. So if we just cut that. What's that like to hear?
again, it's that mixture. It's nice that someone cares, and it's nice that there's someone there. But I got the impression that I don't know you were almost happy that I was in a bad way, so you could jump in and be there. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was quite excited because I'm a lonely person. I'm the lonely carer, and so your goal to me. I was hoping you'd say yes, and that some of my problems would be over. So so the guiding principle is whose needs are being met, and often when I'm listening to people and trying to walk with them, I'm thinking of these particular styles. Am I taking the lead here and directing the traffic? Am I rescuing this person when they plunge into tears and into grief, or am I just being with them to support them and to hold them, not necessarily physically, but to hold them in the space? Am I able to be curious, but curious in a way that is respectful and is caring? And there's a way of doing that. And of course, for me to be connected with you, but connected to you and to anyone I'm caring for, so that we are equal, we are connected, and it's a respectful relationship. So the final one, John.
Mm-hmm.
I hope after all this might work.
Okay.
I'll do my best.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling really down because at the beginning of the pandemic, I lost my job at a catering company. No events, so no work.
That must have been devastating.
It was. It was really hard. I love my job, and I felt really bad. And every time we've come out of lockdown, I've been trying to get some work, but everyone's going for the same jobs, and I can't get any work. And I've been really worried, but I'm also I feel really stuck. I feel really down about where I'm at. Having to rely on the government, which I've never had to do before, and that's going to run out soon, and I still can't find work. And so now we're coming out of lockdown. I don't want to go out. I just want to stay home. I don't want to talk to my friends. Everyone's really happy to come out of lockdown, and I'm not, and I've been drinking too much. I'm just in a really bad place.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're saying, John, that really to start out frustrating. It was so frustrating just trying to find jobs, and then you feel shut out. You tried, and then it sounds like part of you just gave up and then started to just use some alcohol just to strengthen yourself, just to maybe ease the pain.
Yeah, just to forget what the mess I'm in. I was trying really hard for a long time to get work, but now that it seems like it's all nearly over, I just don't have the energy to do it.
You've lost hope?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So if we cut it there, we could go on. So how was that for you?
I said before that quite a few of them, it felt like you were listening, but that time it really felt like you were listening. And by responding to particular things I was saying, but you weren't solving the problems, or you were acknowledging. It felt like you were aware of what I was going through. Yeah.
Okay. Phew. It worked. Yes, there's no perfect way, but certainly if I can pick up on what you're experiencing, what you're feeling, and reflecting it back, it's like holding up a mirror so that you can have a sense of what's going on for you, even though it can be all churned up inside and you've got some idea. To hear it back helps you to see it in perspective, and you're sharing it. You're hopefully, as you talk about it, the anxiety drops, the mercury drops, and the feelings released, and the brain is more able to be engaged, the heart rate will drop, and you'll sense a genuine connection with me, so that maybe eventually over time there might be the opportunity to explore some alternatives, some options. And I wouldn't be directing you about that, but I would helping you to look at some options and what you need to ask the questions and support you in that way.
It felt like it was about me, and rather than all those other ones that for different reasons they were about you.
Meeting your needs rather than mine. And so that's the empathic carer, the one who can reflect and to use reflective listening and active listening to support. So thanks so much, John.
That's all right.
I really appreciate it.
I think I'll get out of the catering gig. I'll get into some ministry.
You go and have your awards. There's a beautiful quote which comes from Henri Nouwen, from The Wounded Healer. And if I could do this every time that I walked or sat with someone in need, I think I would be doing very, very well. I would be excelling. And so just have a look at this beautiful quote. When we honestly ask ourselves which persons in our lives mean the most to us, we often find that it is those who, instead of giving advice, solutions or cures, have chosen rather to share our pain and touch our wounds with a warm and tender hand. The friend who can be silent with us in a moment of despair or confusion, who can stay with us in an hour of grief and bereavement, who can tolerate not knowing, not curing, not healing, and face with us the reality of our powerlessness, that is a friend who cares. What a statement. Well, that's what I aim for. I had that up on my wall for many, many years to be my model of being with and supporting people in need. Well, there's just one area that I need to touch on before we move to questions, and hopefully your questions are coming through to Stephen. He's going to collate them and join me in a few moments. But what I'd like to finish this segment on here is how to do a risk assessment on someone, whether it's a friend, a family member, a workmate, a neighbour, a colleague, who you really have concerns in terms of depression and anxiety. And so the first question to ask is, and this might sound really quite scary, have you ever felt so desperate you wanted to end your life? Now, I would lead into this by saying, listen, mate, I've got a pretty heavy question to ask you, but look, I really, in all clear conscience, I think I need to ask it because I really care for you. And to ask the question, have you ever felt so down, so desperate that you wanted to end your life? Now, friends, that's a question that I've asked many, many times over probably 4 decades, and never once has someone ever said, oh, that's a terrible question to ask me. Do you know, they have really thanked me, because what it conveys to them is that I'm taking them seriously. I've noted how they are struggling and they have really appreciated it. And so if you go in tentatively with, yeah, look, this is a tough question and I'm not sure, I'm a bit scared about asking you this, but it can be a great gift that relieves them of what's been hiding inside them for quite some time. And they may say, no, I've never done that. And so you've got a green light. But if they say yes, you go to question number 2. Have you ever made a plan? And if they say, no, I haven't. Yes, I've often thought about it, but no, I've never made a plan. I would call that an amber light. Yeah, just to note that. Now, if they say, yes, I have made a plan, you can ask them what that is. So, are you able to tell me what that plan is? I know that this is embarrassing, but look, I'm concerned for you and I want to be with you. And then to move on, have you ever attempted to carry it out? And if they say no, I still consider that a fairly high level of need, and I would call that a red light. You still need to have considerable concern. If they say, yes, I have tried to carry that out on 2 occasions, I've overdosed or whatever, you then move on to question number 4, which is, do you regularly drink alcohol or take prescription recreational drugs? And that really, if they say yes to that, it means that there are times in their life, if they do self-medicate and aren't thinking clearly, they are much more vulnerable to carrying out the plan. And in that instance, it's a red flashing light, and your support is absolutely vital. And so I would say something like this. I'd say, look, I'm really concerned for you. What can I do for you now? I'll give you my telephone number if you're prepared to do that, if you have to leave them, or if they are a household member, to sit with them and to spend more time and to ask what they need, and to check if they've ever sought professional help. That always is important. But certainly to convey that you are with them and support them, and you are with them on the journey. So that they are the basic questions to do a risk analysis, and hopefully you will be given wisdom and discernment as to how to respond if the red light flashes. And of course, if there is the need for a referral, you can have some resources such as Beyond Blue. You can give telephone numbers. There's Lifeline, there is Headspace, there's quite a lot of other resources that you can refer to. But I would then follow up and say, look, do you mind if I phone you tomorrow just to see how you're going, to keep in touch so that they are aware of your ongoing support. And the final slide is really about your own self-care. Some people, very conscientious and caring people, can burn out, and I do a lot of supervision of people in the helping professions, those in ministry and those in the helping professions, and the one thing that I'm always looking out for is burnout amongst people who care and who often get caught into caring when they really need a lot of care for themselves. So thank you for listening, and that brings me to the end of my presentation. So I'll just check on Stephen as to whether you've got some questions. So do you mind if I come over and join you?
Well, good day, David. Thank you for that input. That's been really helpful. We have a couple of questions. One of the questions that somebody has sent through is to do with when you're helping someone. If you're a person in need and you reach out to someone else for help and they don't respond, like if either they're unavailable, you said leave a message and they don't call back, or whatever, or maybe you actually talk to them and they just don't kind of even register that you've said something to them. As the person who's in need, what should you do?
Very good question. Yes, often, and it's sometimes, it's us blokes that are like that. We, she'll be right. We kind of dismiss it. I think men are getting a little wiser. Their emotional intelligence is increasing. But I think what I do, Stephen, is to look for a pattern and to look what previous behaviour looked like when they were in a good state, and to what you see happening now, and to just describe what the changes are. You say, listen, mate, I've noticed that you've given up walking with us in recent times, and you look a lot more slumped, when you're walking. You look as though you're carrying a heavy load, and when you've been talking to the kids for the last couple of weeks, you seem very testy and sharp. Look, I could be wrong, mate, but I hear you say you're okay. There's nothing wrong, but when I see what I see on some of the behaviours, I just can't put the two together. And so to me, that's hopefully a respectful way of just giving some evidence.
Yeah. And that's helpful for if you're trying to care for someone who is in need and they don't respond to you or whatever, they don't tell you what you think is there. But what about if you're the person who's searching for need, you're searching for help, and you're just getting nothing back? And so, like I come to you with John's problem. I'm a caterer who's lost his job, and you just kind of blank out, or you just change the topic of conversation, or maybe I might ring you and say, look, David, I'd love to chat sometime, but you just don't ever call back. Like, what should I do if I'm a person in need who's struggling and I'm not getting anything back from you?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're the person in need, okay, you've been out there looking for a job, and you're not responding to me.
No. I'm trying to share with you, and you're not helping. You're no good to me. You're not I'm calling, you don't call me back, or I talk to you and you don't listen or respond at all. Like, what are my options?
Yeah, look, to find someone who will listen, and it needs to be someone that you trust, someone that you've got a relationship with, and often it can be a doctor. If all else fails, look, there's some wonderful GPs out there who really they've been upskilled in more recent years to be very relational and to be able to listen well. I know quite a few doctors in their training, and so doctors can be very, very useful at tuning in, and then also making a referral to maybe some a counselling agency or someone in the helping profession. So if you find you're not getting anywhere with a family member or a so-called friend, sometimes when people do get a bit of an issue, their friends get a bit thin.
Yeah, and you also mentioned, I think one of the slides, maybe if you could go back a slide, John, with some of the other things that we can connect with, things like Lifeline and Beyond Blue options too.
Beyond Blue, yes.
I know Anglicare, for instance, has got a lot of things.
Anglicare, Black Dog Institute, Headspace. Yes, there are a lot of, to Google those to give you the contact numbers.
Kind of going back to it, changing the topic slightly, you talked about the importance of responding when you're talking about the qualities of a good carer. What do you do if you just don't know what to say? Like, somebody says something and you just, it's a problem you've never faced before, it's a problem you have no idea how to help them with. Like, as a helper, you say something and suddenly I'm going, what do I say here? How do I respond to that?
And I've sat with people, particularly in hospital, as you may have too, I'm sure, Stephen, and John also. And look, there are times often when there is, particularly around grief, and I'm stuck. There are no words to say. And often I think, if I just say, look, at the moment, I just don't know what to say, mate. but I'm here with you.
Mm.
I'm just happy to sit here with you. Is that okay?
Yeah, that when you said that just being with them
Mm.
is really important, and being,
Yeah. And often I think that just conveys, because often I think there are some people in some moments of their life, particularly when there is deep crisis, they don't want words. They just want to know that there's someone there, and even just to have permission to take them by the hand or put your hand on their shoulder. Yeah, I'm just with you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Just another question. Somebody asked, and this is probably may come across as a bit biased because being a minister. What's the place of faith? I know sometimes people kind of want to push away the church or Christians and Christianity when we're talking about these things. But what's the place of faith? And do Christians have anything to offer to this whole space?
Yes, the divine resources that are there through prayer and through Christian connection. I mean, you would have a very I know that you have very valuable ministry here with John in supporting people, and so I think for people of faith, their prayer and their God, their divine resources can be the rock that they can stand upon, and on the promises of God, and feel the support of God's Spirit, the calming and the peace of God through His Spirit. So to me, those for a Christian, yes, those resources are there and can be claimed and embraced on the promises.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed actually in my dealings with people who are going through difficulties, particularly as I've dealt with Christian people, one of the things that does help them is that idea of hope, that realising that there is more to life than what we see and feel and touch. And situations at the moment I can think of where people are going through really difficult and anxiety-producing times, but that hope is something that gives them a real strength, and it can be a real help.
Yes, a very good point.
Yeah. Changing the topic again, you talked about the different styles of caring, and the authoritarian care and that kind of thing, where you come in trying to solve the problem. Now that would never be a problem for me or any other men, but I wonder if you find yourself in doing that, just answering people and say, well, this is what you should do. How do you kind of check yourself? What do you do? Do you just kind of backtrack and say, hang on a minute, you don't want to hear that? Like, what do you do if you find yourself going down the wrong way?
Look, I can still get caught into that sometimes, particularly with family, where I should be doing a lot more of the empathic listening and really finding out where the real itch is or the ache. And yes, once you're aware of it, exactly, just to pull yourself back and think, oh, wait a minute, I'm just getting a bit ahead of myself here, and just to change gear and come back to tell me more. And to reflect back using more the empathic style. Yeah.
I guess you don't have to, as a carer, you don't have to be perfect, do you?
No.
Yeah, you're going to make mistakes as well, and that's okay. Yeah.
Well, I'm still working on it. I've been on the road for 4 decades now, and I'm still working on it. You're only as good as your last encounter.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. We've almost coming to the end, but just one last question that somebody's just sent through. And this is a really important one, particularly in Gerringong and Kiama area. In the last 12 months or so, we've had a number of people, young people particularly, taking their own life. And you talked about some of the ideas, the questions to ask during self-harm, about to do with self-harm. Have you been so desperate that you want to take your life? Have you made a plan? Those kind of questions.
Yeah.
Are there other things that we can do to help our young people? Because obviously there's a lot of young people who are really struggling at the moment through COVID, and it's been exacerbated, of course. So what can we do as a community, as a church, as friends, as neighbours, as family? How can we really help these young people who are struggling so much?
Yes, an excellent question, a good one to finish on too. And I suppose it's just being good role models in terms of looking after ourselves, our own mental health, physical, emotional health, spiritual health, being real about our own struggles, So you are modelling openness. You're not trying to be, for me, the macho alpha male. I've got clay feet, but also, I can be open and I can reveal my strengths, but I also can reveal my vulnerabilities. So to provide an environment of a non-judgmental, accepting celebration of differences. That's the kind of environment I think that we need to be fostering in our families and within our community, within our church.
Yeah. And is it a helpful thing to try and encourage other relationships? Like, I know sometimes young people can get so caught up in the virtual world that they don't necessarily have the glue that you were talking about at the beginning of your talk about those relationship things, to maybe help foster that. Is it a helpful thing?
Yes, I think. There's a lot of talk and negative talk, isn't there? Around there's a lot of good in social media platforms, but also there's a lot of darkness too, and yes, that can become very addictive, and some of it turn very toxic. So, to me, good care of yourself is often to really just switch off from some of those platforms and to stay safe there and to connect with friends that you choose. And if you're a bit short on friends, to start thinking, it'd be nice to connect with one or two and to start investing in those relationships and reaching out. Putting yourself out there so that you're able to connect. And I mean, that's easier said than done, particularly for people who might be a little shy or a little bit wounded because of some broken relationships in the past. But so I think maintaining that human contact is really quite critical.
Yeah. Look, David, I could sit and ask you these questions for hours because I've got lots that I could ask, but I recognise that being online for a long time is difficult, and so I want to say thank you to you for giving us your time, your expertise. It's given a lot of stuff for us to think about and really some practical things. It's been really helpful. Can I say thank you to everyone for joining into this seminar. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope that there are some things that you can take there and really apply to your life, to your friends and your family that you know who are struggling. Can I also say that if you are struggling in any way, feeling anxious or depressed or feeling really low mood in an ongoing kind of way, please don't try and go on your own. There's nothing wrong with reaching out. I was going to ask you about the stigma of mental illness and sadness and how we overcome that. But I think it's really important for us to realise that it is okay for us to reach out and to connect with Lifeline, to connect with Beyond Blue or through Anglicare, or to reach out to a family member or to a friend. And I guess one of the last things for me to say is to say, look, we as a church want to lay ourselves before you and give an opportunity that if there's any way that we can help you, that we're here. You don't have to kind of sign a declaration of belief to join in or whatever to connect with us. We'd love to be able to help, and I think particularly in the area of teenagers, with young people, the church has lots of programs, and I know they do at the Uniting Church down the road as well. So I encourage you to reach out and to make the most of those. It's a great way to form relationships. And so thank you so much for joining with us tonight. I hope you found it helpful. Please, if you want to connect with us as a church, you can do it through the website, or you can send me a text on the message, the number that's on the screen. I'd love to hear from you, and if we can help you in any way, that would be really great. So thank you for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you sometime around town. Thank you again, David, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks, everyone.